Can I put that to you, actually, as David Shearer's former Chief of Staff? Was it David Shearer who failed, or did the team around him, the immediate team around him, did that team fail him?
Well, I would say two things, Rachel. There were two things that went wrong. First of all, you know your political history as well as I do. I cannot think of a party that won an election, either in government or in opposition, that had an openly disunified caucus. And the second thing I think went wrong is the strategy was wrong in the Leader's office.
OK, so let's start with the caucus. What did the Labour caucus think of Shearer?
Well, they elected him. When you elect a leader, you stand behind that leader. You work very hard for that leader, and you make sure you give that leader the best possible opportunity to win an election. Politics is about winning elections. I personally think David would have been a very good Prime Minister. He's a smart guy. And look, I don't buy into the argument that he was too nice. This was a bloke who lived in Mogadishu. This was a bloke that led the UN in Iraq. Mr. Nice does not do those sorts of jobs. This was a hard man. He was a very good bloke, and like I said, I think he would have been a very good Prime Minister, given the opportunity. What
was going on in the Leader's office then?
Well, I firmly believe that if you want to be Prime Minister, you've got to give every New Zealander the opportunity to have met you. Now, if you think about if you want to be President of the United States, that person has to travel up and down the country and speak in nearly every little hamlet, town, city, right across America. And it's the same in New Zealand. Helen Clark, between 1996 and 1999, spent all her time just travelling up and down and right across New Zealand, speaking to every little Rotary Club, Lions Club, Workingmen's Club, you know, you name it, Helen talked to it. You've got to have meetings with town halls that contain 10 people and contain 100 people. You've got to give 10 speeches a week, and then you've got to get up and you've got to give another 10 the next week. Every single year when you are in opposition is election year. There is no sort of hiatus, there's no holiday. You've got to start campaigning.
So they had the wrong strategy for him then, do you think?
They did. I firmly believe that what David needed to do was do what Helen did. Tuesday and Wednesday in Parliament, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, up and down the country speaking to New Zealanders. Like I said, if New Zealanders feel they've had the opportunity to meet you, it doesn't mean they've necessarily taken up that opportunity, but if they feel as if they have had that opportunity, then they're much more likely to vote for you. And keep in mind, if you come to a place like Hastings or like Napier, the leader of the opposition turning up is still big news. You're still going to get your photo in the Community Daily or the Community Weekly.
So who do you blame for this failure? Who do you blame for this failure in strategy?
Well, David had some staff around him that he listened to, that he took advice from. The bottom line is, David has resigned as leader of the opposition because he felt as if he didn't have the confidence of his caucus colleagues, and that basically is because the polls weren't rising in a way that the caucus felt he should have. So, you know, I think I think his chief strategists have actually got to put up their hand and say, hey, we got it wrong.
Who? Exactly who?
Well, I actually think Fran Mold needs to put up her hand and say, look, maybe I didn't do things as well as I could have in terms of media relations. Alistair Cameron perhaps has to as Chief of Staff, but Alistair's a very good man, and I've had a couple of conversations with Alistair. But, you know, the bottom line is David is the leader, but I just think if he had spent all his time up and down the country, because he is a good man, he's a man of absolute integrity, he's a man of fantastic values, and he could have been a good Prime Minister. But what I'm talking about, this isn't rocket science, Rachel. This isn't the first time this has been said. This is what every leader in New Zealand and across the Western world does if they want to be Prime Minister, President, you name it. They get out and they meet the people and they find out what the real issues are.
Okay, so
they don't stay in Wellington.
Who's the person to do that then? Who's the next leader, in your opinion?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and I think this is going to be a fantastic opportunity for Labour if they do it well. What Labour now has the opportunity to do is to go out to the whole country and say, hey, we've got 2, 3, 4, I don't know how many people are going to put their hand up, potential leaders who can really put forward their vision for how they think New Zealand could be under a Labour government, and they'll put forward a compelling case for why they should be Prime Minister.
Okay.
This is handled well, and I don't think this is going to be a dirty race. I've read in the press that people think this is going to tear Labour apart. I don't see it that way. I think if handled well, this could be a fantastic PR opportunity for Labour.
Who's the best man then? And it looks likely to be a man. Who is the best man to front foot John Key?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to take my cue from how both can. Well, it looks like at the moment, I mean, let's be honest, it looks like it's going to be Grant Robinson, David Cunliffe. Now, Shane Jones may put up his hand, and I hope he does. In fact, I hope we have 4 or 5 people put up their hand, and we have town hall debates up and down this country with these 5 people putting forward a vision for how New Zealand could be. But let's say it is Cunliffe and it is Robinson. Well, I will make my choice, because I'm a member, so I get a vote. I'll make my choice after hearing the candidates and who I think is the best person to, first of all, and most importantly, unify the caucus. That is the number one thing. They've got to unify the caucus. The second thing, who can sell a vision to New Zealand? Who can convince New Zealanders that Labour is now ready to govern?
Stuart Nash, former Chief of Staff and Labour MP, live for us from Hastings this morning. Thank you for your insight.